Yo, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and we're going to be taking a look at 10 players in the NHL here in the 2021 offseason that I think will be traded, and I'm going to leave a prediction for where I think not only the guys that will get traded, but where they will get traded to. We'll be looking at that in this video, so we have a lot to get to, so let's get right into it. So, starting at number 1, we are taking a look at former, at this point, Calgary Flames centerman Sean Monahan, as I think Monahan will get traded here by the Calgary Flames. Now, where do I think he will go? Is part of the equation. You look at what he had this season. He had 28 points this season in 50 games, struggled with the Flames, but again, you look at most of the Flames team, a lot of them struggled this year. He is a 26-year-old center, so he's just going into his prime, a 2013 first-round pick of the Flames, and you look at his contract situation. It is a little bit interesting. He is right now, he has a modified no-trade clause, and he will have 2 years left on a $6.375 million per year contract with the Flames. He signed this deal back in 2016. But again, he has had some injury issues, and that is something that, especially with a back injury, will be quite concerning for a team picking him up. So the question is, what team would maybe look to pick up a guy like Sean Monahan? Now, there's two teams in particular that I think will really key in on a guy like Sean Monahan this offseason. And you have to look at the situation. All right, well, you have to find a team that has the salary cap space and a team that doesn't want to give up too many prospects and doesn't want to give up too much value, but is willing to take on more salary. That's kind of the situation. So there's two teams in particular. One is the Minnesota Wild, and I think the Wild will be a player here this offseason for a guy like Monahan, but I really believe that we will see the Arizona Coyotes sweep up Sean Monahan. Now, the price tag, again, mock trades. I'm not really doing mock trades here, but I'm more doing the destination. I think it will be a good fit. The Arizona Coyotes need a little bit of help down the middle, especially if they lose a guy like Derek Brassard, who he didn't have a great season this year. But you look at their center depth, they have Christian Dvorak, what's his other name? Nick Schmaltz. And then you add a guy like Sean Monahan, that will be a pretty nice complementary piece. And you can maybe even move a guy like Dvorak or Schmaltz to the wing. Honestly, Dvorak is a good first-line center. Schmaltz, again, with his injury issues, again, do the Coyotes want to add another injury-prone center? Maybe not. But I think Sean Monahan could be a good fit for the Coyotes. They need some help up front, add some depth. I think Monahan could be, for the right price, had for the Yotes. Now, the second guy we're going to take a look at is a defenseman. And this is going along with the Minnesota Wild. He is a former defenseman of the Wild, and I think he is going to be, unfortunately, a casualty of the expansion draft here of the Seattle Kraken coming in. And I think that will be Matt Dumba, defenseman Matt Dumba of the Minnesota Wild. He's 26 years old. Again, same age as Monahan, going right into his NHL prime. He had 21 points this past season with the Wild in a shortened season. He's on pace for around anywhere between 25 to 50 points, which was his career high back in the 2017-2018 season. A former first-round pick back in 2012, and this is a guy that could generate some interest from a team in particular in New Jersey, as I think the Devils will be the team to pick up Matt Dumba. Good defenseman, has 2 years left on his contract at $6 million per season. Now, if the Minnesota Wild do not move him before the expansion draft, he will have a modified no-trade clause for the next 2 years. So it would make sense for the Wild to move him before the expansion draft. I think the Winnipeg Jets will also be a player. And there's another guy in particular that I think if they don't get that player, they will circle back to Minnesota and look for Dumba instead. So continuing along at number 3, we've got Rasmus Ristolainen, and that is the other defenseman. So if somebody swings and misses, say New Jersey or Winnipeg, and they don't pick up Ristolainen, they will likely look at Dumba, but I think Ristolainen will go to the Winnipeg Jets. I think Ristolainen is the big name defenseman to pick up right now, and Ristolainen will go to the Winnipeg Jets. You look at Ristolainen, again, same sort of age, going into his prime, 26 years old, 2013 draft pick, same draft as Sean Monahan, and he has struggled, but he has put up points. He had 18 points this season with the Buffalo Sabres, not bad for a defenseman, and he's good for around 35 to 40 points per season. And I think this would be a really nice add for the Winnipeg Jets. Add a little bit of scoring on the blue line. Add some depth. They desperately need some top four defensemen. I think Risto would fit in really nice. Next season, he will be in the conclusion of a $5.4 million AAV deal. So he would fit under the cap for Paul Maurice and the Jets. And he would really add some stability on that blue line. That was really an issue here in the playoffs for them, especially in that second round against the Avs. That was pretty much exposed. So we could see Ristolainen be a really key add this offseason for the Jets. So now we're looking at number 4. The Boston Bruins could select Adam Henrique here. Now the reasoning for this is you're going to get him for fairly cheap, and surprisingly, the Bruins are going to have some cap space this year. Now, the problem is the Bruins don't have a ton of draft capital and prospect depth, so they may have to use their salary as an asset at this point, and you could pick up Adam Henrique to really solidify your depth in the bottom 6, which desperately, I mean, let's be honest, it got exposed against the New York Islanders. So I think Adam Henrique, again, even if you're able to take Anaheim to retain some of that salary, that could be a really nice add to the bottom 6 for the Boston Bruins. He's 31 years old. He is only on this. He'll be the third year of a 5-year deal. So this deal won't be over till 2024, and it is a modified no trade clause. But again, Adam Henrique, I don't think would say no to a trade to Boston, where they just made it to the second round of the playoffs. Anaheim hasn't made the playoffs in the last couple years. He may look at that as an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. So maybe he signs off on heading to the East Coast. I wouldn't be surprised if Boston also looked at a guy like Rickard Rakell. And if Rickard Rakell, if that price tag is still super, super high, maybe they look at a guy like Adam Henrique instead. Sam Reinhart, continuing with the Buffalo Sabres. He's one of 3 Sabres on this top 10 list that I think will get traded. Sam Reinhart this past season did quite well considering where the Sabres have been. He had 40 points in 54 games. He was the leader in points for most of this season for the Sabres. He has had 65-point seasons, which he had back in 2019. He's had 50-point seasons, 47 points, 42 points. So he is good for at least 45 to 60 points per season, or 45 to 55, let's be honest, points per season. This is a really talented player, and I think the San Jose Sharks will be the team to snag him from the Buffalo Sabres. A 2014 draft pick, 2nd overall. He's 25 years old. The Vancouver Canucks, I think, would like to be interested in that guy, but again, they've got enough young forwards coming up, but he would be a nice addition to Vancouver. He's from Vancouver, so that would be another team I would look at. But again, because of Vancouver's salary cap issues, and they already have guys like Podkolzin, Höglander, Besser, I just don't think it's going to work. But again, in an outside chance, if Vancouver was so sold on bringing in Reinhart, I would not be at the least surprised. And he signed a 1-year deal last offseason at $5.2 million for a 1-year deal. He is a RFA this season, so that may complicate things here for the Buffalo Sabres if they want to move him. So now we're heading back to Boston here, as I think the Bruins could be in terms of maybe making a shakeup here. I think they could be looking at moving 24-year-old forward Jake DeBrusk, a former one of those dreaded 3 picks of the Bruins from Peter Chiarelli back in 2015. He has been a pretty good player, but his point production has definitely slipped this season. He had 43 points, 42 points, 35 points in a shortened season last year, and only 14 points in 41 games this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets moved. He does have 1 more year left, which is a little bit of leverage for the Bruins in terms of trading him at less than $4 million this season at 3.675. And again, he's still 24 years old. He'll be 25 next year. At that low cap hit, I think the Colorado Avalanche could be a real player for a guy like Jake DeBrusk. Again, in the event that they maybe lose a guy like Landeskog this offseason, Not that he's replacing Gabriel Landeskog. We can all agree on that. But if you want to return a guy that can play in the top six on a very cheap deal, this is a guy that could turn his career around playing alongside maybe Mikko Rantanen or Gabriel Landeskog, or for that matter, even on the second line. He could be a really nice add to that second line as well. So that is something to keep an eye on. I think Jake DeBrusk would be interesting in Colorado. Now, Dougie Hamilton is going to see a change of scenery this summer, I truly believe, and I think that the Seattle Kraken will get their shot here at Dougie Hamilton. He's a 27-year-old defenseman in his prime. He came off a 42-point season this year here with the Carolina Hurricanes, mind you, in a shortened season. So he was on pace for between 50 to 60 points as a defenseman this season. So definitely something to keep in mind there. He signed a deal back in 2015 at a $5.75 million per year contract. I think we will see that get raised to anywhere between $6 to maybe even close to $7 million on that next deal. And Ron Francis, who brought him in from the Calgary Flames, you have to wonder if we could see a fit here in Seattle. And I think the Seattle Kraken will snag up Dougie Hamilton in free agency, or maybe even sooner here during maybe a sign-in trade with the Hurricanes. Now, at number 8, we're looking at Morgan Rielly of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I gave it away here. I think he will go to the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, if the Flyers miss out on, say, a guy like Seth Jones, don't be surprised if Morgan Rielly comes up. His $5 million cap hit will definitely be attractive to the Philadelphia Flyers for next season. He's 27 years old, a former 2012 first-round draft pick. And again, this is a guy where he has had some really good seasons, a 52-point season, a 72-point season, a 40-point season. So, and even this season, 35 points in 55 games. Again, kind of where Dougie Hamilton's numbers were. He's going to have a really good chance to make some serious dough in his next contract, next offseason. I think the Philadelphia Flyers will be just desperate enough to bring in a guy like Morgan Rielly, make sure he fits this season, and then they could worry about making negotiations next season. I think he'd fit in really well with the Flyers. He'd look good in orange, Morgan Rielly, and he could add that little bit of puck moving to their blue line. They've got some big defensemen, guys like Provorov, Hag, Sanheim. They've got those big defensemen, but they really need a guy that can move the puck forward for them. And Shane Gostisbehere was that guy, and he has kind of fallen off a cliff, as we've all seen. So I really think a guy like Morgan Rielly could really add some speed and skill to that blue line there in Philly. And again, just to keep in mind, modified no-trade clause there for Rielly, so he would have to sign off on that trade. Now moving to number 9, we're getting to the bigger names here. Seth Jones of the Dallas Stars. There you go. Seth Jones of the Columbus Blue Jackets. At 26 years old, from Arlington, Texas, I think it's a no-brainer. He should go to the Dallas Stars. Now, the question is, the Dallas Stars don't have a ton of cap space. It's going to make it difficult for them to get that deal done. You look at the numbers he's put up, consistently a 40 to 45 point defenseman in the NHL, if not even a 50-point defenseman, which he had 57 points and 46 points in consecutive seasons. So that is something to keep an eye on. And again, this is on the Columbus Blue Jackets, a very defensive-minded John Tortorella-led team. He's been here during the John Tortorella era. I can only imagine that the points would go up with maybe a team like the Dallas Stars. And again, he goes back to his home, at 26 years old. And this is a guy that I think people will definitely be drooling all over to try and acquire. And again, at $5.4 million, he could see anywhere between $6 and $7 million on a contract extension next offseason. And then the big fish, and that is Jack Eichel. He is the third guy of the Buffalo Sabres that I think will get moved here this offseason. And at 24 years old, the youngest guy, alongside Jake DeBrusk, the youngest guy on this list. He has spent now 6 seasons in Buffalo, no playoff appearances in that time. He has had an 82-point season, a 78-point season in a shortened year last year, and unfortunately only 18 points in 21 games this year. I think we're going to see the former second overall pick back in 2015 go to a team on the West Coast. Now, there are a couple teams that are in on Jack Eichel. We've heard the New York Rangers, the Boston Bruins, going back to his hometown where he played college. I don't think that's going to happen. We've heard the St. Louis Blues, Doug Armstrong, was considering, maybe taking a good swing here at Jack Eichel this offseason. The Seattle Kraken's Ron Francis was supposedly in on looking at Jack Eichel, kind of getting an inquiry for that. The Anaheim Ducks, the LA Kings, the Arizona Coyotes, we've heard all of them in the picture. But I think the LA Kings will get Jack Eichel. I think it's a perfect fit at $10 million per season. The Kings have the cap space. I think as long as they're willing to take that surgery that Jack Eichel wants to get, again, only his 4th year of an 8-year deal that he signed back with the Buffalo Sabres in 2018. He's going to be there till 2026 on a modified no-trade clause. This is a no-brainer. The Buffalo Sabres will get the assets from the Kings that maybe a lot of these other teams can't give up. I hate to say, the Ducks can, but again, it's going to cost you guys like Trevor Zegras or Jamie Drysdale. Do the Ducks really want to do that? And for the LA Kings, you could argue, without giving up Quinton Byfield, they could still give up a guy like Alex Turcotte and still get that deal done. I truly believe that could work. Alex Turcotte, a first-round pick, maybe even 2. Again, it's a little bit steep, but the Kings still have guys that they can give up those 2 first-round picks because they still have Kopitar, they still have Dougie, they still have guys where they're not going to tank or worry about tanking if they acquire Jack Eichel and they still suck. The Kings are not in that spot necessarily. And if they're able to shore up the goaltending situation, well, the Kings could be in a very different spot as soon as next season with Jack Eichel. And I think it's a perfect fit for a team that, let's be honest, they have been, teetering in terms of, success, but a couple draft lottery wins here and there definitely helped getting Quinton Byfield last year. But this is a team, now that we've seen Velarde start to elevate his game, you have Quinton Byfield, you don't need Alex Turcotte. If you bring in Jack Eichel, you don't really need him as much, and you give up some first-round picks, you maybe give up a guy like Rasmus Kupari, maybe, again, you have the assets. The world is your oyster if you're Rob Blake and the LA Kings management, Luc Robitaille, because you have the assets. And let's be honest, you have the core still where you could just put Jack Eichel right in that spot, and it's a perfect fit. So that's it for my predictions. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Where do you think some of these guys will end up this offseason? If they get traded at all, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time.